Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Welcome to the High Velocity Radio Show, where we celebrate top performers producing better results in less time. Stone Payton here with you. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast with Enneagram Reflections, Kimberly Collins. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I have really been looking forward to this conversation. I have heard a thing or two in passing around this whole idea of Enneagrams, and so I'm interested to dive into that conversation here in a moment. But before we go there, how would you describe mission, purpose? What are you really out there trying to do for folks, Kimberly?
Absolutely. What I do comes from a lot of experience in the leadership world and a heart for leaders who, are serving teams or, having to manage large businesses and seeing the amount of pressure that these leaders are put under has inspired me to work a system and my business around supporting these leaders so that they can not only show up for their teams better, which of course is such a wonderful thing, but to show up for themselves better and to feel more fulfilled by the things that they are doing. So really my mission is to walk alongside leaders and teams and create a more harmonious workplace so that everybody can feel like they are working at their best and they're working with each other and serving their clients the best as well.
So what's the backstory? Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you landed here doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am now an executive coach and an Enneagram consultant. But before I started this business, I was part of I was co-founded, co-owned an orthodontic practice in Minnesota. And I did that for 11 years. And during that time, I did everything that didn't require a doctorate of dental surgery. So I was payroll and 401k and finance and taxes and HR and hiring and firing. And I found myself, it was about 6 years deep into that 11-year tenure that I found myself really burning out. Thousands of patients, 35 employees, and 3 little kids at home. And I thought, something's got to go. It's either going to be me or this business. And I was introduced to the Enneagram as a way of kind of managing myself and my emotions and how I show up to the conversation. And I found that it was so helpful for me to manage my own burnout that I decided to become certified in it. And I started applying it to my team and saw that we had better communication and more harmony and more productive conflict. And that inspired me to use it more and also to now do this full time. So now I work with especially small business owners, but I work as well with more corporate groups as well on how they can use the Enneagram, not only for the team, which is a great place, but also for the leaders, which is always, where I think that the most growth comes is working with leaders.
Yeah, well, say more about the topics or competencies or the areas where the Enneagram really can have an impact.
Absolutely. So the Enneagram in and of itself is not a growth tool. And I always have to be, super clear about that because people will get into it and they'll say, wow, now I know what my personality type is, but what do I do with this information? But where it really thrives is improving our self-awareness, which of course is the first stop on any personal growth journey, is knowing what are the stories that are driving my life? What are the motivations behind a lot of those patterns of thoughts and behaviors that make up the majority of my life? And how is this tinting my perspective of the world? So the Enneagram is, of course, I'm biased, but of course, in my perspective, is the best at giving us a great view of how we're showing up and giving us a language for an inner experience. From that self-awareness, we're able to see how we show up and we can make decisions from there. So we can choose better ways of emotional regulation, better ways of communicating and understanding how other people are experiencing us, and in improving our conflict, showing up how we can disagree, but also how we can communicate in a way that those disagreements lead to something productive.
As you're describing this, a mental image came to me a long, long time ago. Games were different back in my day, but there was this driving game, and you could pick between two different views. And one, you were sitting in the car and driving, but the other one was like a
Mm.
bird's eye view. And
Oh, yeah.
it seems to me like doing this allows you to have a bird's eye view of how'd you put it, like how you're coming to the conversation, or how you're I don't know, that's the mental image I got as you were describing
Yeah.
it.
I love that. And absolutely. It's a way of, uh, like I said, a language for your own inner experience. But like you said, it's a way of seeing how you're showing up to this conversation and what you're bringing to the table. And seeing how that's interacting with other people is really powerful for improving how you show up and how you interact.
So a term that I've been coming across a lot as we've been doing this coaching series is emotional intelligence. Got to believe that there's a lot to be done in that area with this work, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, emotional intelligence, in my mind, that's your ceiling for growth is how how you can improve the soft skills of your job so that you can show up as the leader that you want to show up as. I think that a lot of times when we first start out our careers, we're heavily leaning on those hard technical skills that maybe we've gone to school for, maybe we've had kind of testing or training or whatever it is around that. And then we get to a point where our soft skills are those emotional intelligence skills. And that's all that emotional regulation, communication, conflict, that's all emotional intelligence. That becomes either equal or greater than those hard technical skills. And yet, leaders are frequently thrown into leadership positions without any training. And, things that happen from that are one, ineffective leadership, of course. But if you're the leader, you're dealing with issues of imposter syndrome, that shame of, I
Mm.
can't handle this situation. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're having to rely on a set of skills that have never been developed. And then of course, the issues of burnout, which are just rampant, especially with leaders. There's so much pressure to not only manage the position you're in, the expectations from the company, but now you're having to make decisions for other people. And if you don't have a good set of skills around your own self awareness and how you can fit in that slipstream of, boundaries versus connection, as well as improving your communication and conflict, I mean, you're going to burn out so fast in these positions.
I'm getting a pretty clear picture of how this might apply to an individual, and for that self-awareness as you're describing, how do you utilize it to help entire teams?
Absolutely. And I'm going to cop out a little bit and say the best place to start for any team is with a leader. The research is in. If you want to improve a team, you go to the leader, the boss, the parent, the teacher. These are the people who make the greatest impact. The smallest, the biggest bang for your buck is starting with the leader. However, if you want to use it with a team, the Enneagram, again, is going to thrive even just introducing the topic of showing a team that, hey, there are 9 different perspectives of the world that are totally normal. And it just blows up that it's like the normal paradox that Chris Voss talks about, where we all think that we're normal. And then when we encounter someone else who has a different normal, they just drive us nuts. So it's helping us see that, hey, I might see the world through this perspective, but that's just one of 9 ways of seeing the world, and that there's an infinite number of variations to those perspectives that is coloring our interaction. And that even just by opening up the eyes to that can be really, really helpful. Of course, if I'm going to work really in depth with a team, I'm going to be focusing on those big points of contention. Communication, how we show up to conflict, how we show up to expectation. And these can really improve just how we see each other when we're tackling projects or tackling something we disagree with.
So when you were kind of getting started with this and trying to go out and describe to someone who could write the check and had the authority to bring you in to do this kind of work, was the business side of coaching tough? Like the whole sales and marketing thing, was that a bit of a challenge in the early going, or did that come pretty easy?
I think anytime you get into a new venture, you're going to be working with tools you've never worked with before. So I come from small business area and dental care, so it's kind of a healthcare. So I was very familiar with all of those laws and regulations and softwares. And then moving into a new space, of course, there's going to be a lot of learning the new technical things and learning too about uh, how you want to talk about these topics. And I think it's a
Mm.
lot of a um, exposure, exposure therapy, or whatever you want to call it, of talking about what you're passionate about and being confident that what you are providing is, something that's really valuable. And eventually you'll find those people who see the value in it, and it'll just kind of click. But yeah, I mean, of course, anytime you start something new, there's going to be those hiccups.
So what are one or two things? What are some things that people sometimes just get wrong, maybe have a misconception about the nature of this work that maybe you run into before you have an opportunity to kind of educate them through that?
A lot of times, especially when I'm working with the Enneagram, it's the idea that this is a one and done. That
Mm.
okay, we have the tool. This is great. Our team is exposed to this information, and we're never going to have issues like this again. And really, the conversation of the Enneagram, or the conversation about emotional intelligence, self awareness, this is a lifelong conversation. This is something that we're always going to be working on as individuals and as teams, and that the work itself is the importance, that there's no solving it. It's just going through ups and downs and learning from those ups and downs. But I see that a lot of this. Okay, we had the conversation. Let's move on to the next thing. And then being surprised that those nuggets that they got from the conversation aren't being carried 6 months down the line. So it's something that has to become back to intentionally to be able to really improve that the psychological safety of the team long term.
Psychological safety. I like that phrase. I may borrow
Yeah,
that one.
yeah,
No,
kind of
that's
a
so
mouthful.
important, right? And with teams and having the trust and feeling safe and being able to be yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure the answer to the question is yes, but I'm going to ask about it anyway, maybe ask you to expound on it a little bit. But have you had the benefit of one or more mentors along the way to help you navigate this terrain of coaching on these competencies, but also on getting people to write you a check to coach on these competencies?
Absolutely. I think if anything, you need to have mentors who are showing those practical side of things, of course, the how to, the where to do this, and uh, giving you ideas about software. But I think it's encouragement and support for uh, the individuals starting these things out, and just even those little pep talks of you can do this, working through this mindset shift that's really bogging you down is so crucial. Because starting any new venture, especially if it's a solo venture, it's a lonely position, just like leadership is. And so it's so important to have people in your life that are also encouraging you when the times get kind of discouraging.
Well, and you chose to become formally credentialed in this Enneagram arena and in other ways as well. That this was a commitment that you made, and it's my understanding you don't have to go get these kinds of credentials to hang your shingle out. But I'm interested. Are you glad you did?
Absolutely. I mean, I am a lifetime learner. I That's definitely one of the things that I love to do the most is learn. And so it was very natural for me to want to lean in and uh, you know, get the credentialing so that I felt like I understood things from beginning to end. There's a lot of information out there, especially about the Enneagram, that can lean into kind of the pop culture side of things, which totally, I love that stuff too. It's a party, it's fun, but I love to know the psychological underpinnings of things, the history behind things, so that when I'm teaching this to teams, I feel like I have a depth to it as well. So for me, that was a no-brainer because I love to learn. But definitely, you don't have to be accredited in Enneagram. You don't have to be accredited in coaching if you don't want to be. But for me, I feel like having that underpinning of formal training helps me have confidence in that what I'm offering to teams and offering to individuals as an executive coach is helpful and rooted in something more than just culture.
So in the white space, I'll call it, when you're not actively engaged in coaching and that kind of thing, you're probably writing, speaking, all that stuff just to continue to educate your market. Yeah.
Absolutely. I read a lot of books every year. I I definitely love to write about them as well. I And then it's, of course, keeping up on your industry too. So I have more continuing education that I do every year just to, again, keep growing my perspective of what I do so that I can provide even more benefit to my clients.
So I'm going to shift gears on you for a moment, if I might.
Yep.
I would be interested to know hobbies, interests, pursuits, passions outside the scope of the work. Anything you nerd out about that's not this stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a professional musician as well.
Wow.
I'm a professional singer. And so I love to do music stuff. And I am so blessed that I have three little kids and I have one of them who's old enough to be into music as well. And so it's just been such a cool passion to pass some of my music love onto my kids. But I definitely spend a lot of time nerding out about music.
Oh, that's fun. I'm so glad that I asked. I'm learning that asking that question, you really do get to learn a lot about people, and you get to
Oh yeah,
and the
absolutely.
whole person, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Hey, before we wrap, I would love to leave our listeners with an idea or two. Sometimes I call them pro tips for kind of getting their arms around some of what we've talked about: the Enneagram, this idea of self-awareness. I like the idea of psychological safety. And look, guys, the number one tip is reach out and have a conversation with Kimberly. But let's give them a little something to noodle on between now and then, Kimberly.
Absolutely. I guess one pro tip I would always say is that if you want to start creating psychological safety, either in your teams or let's say it's just at home with your kids or your family or spouse, um, it's always going to start with you. It's going to start with you becoming more aware of how you're showing up to that conversation. And when you are given the opportunity to react, choosing to respond instead. The psychological safety is all about providing a space for another person to be themselves, have differing opinions and differing preferences, and not experiencing negative feedback. And that all comes from being in the vicinity of a person who is emotionally regulated and is able to respond instead of react. Even when, the tensions get high, it can be out of response that things move forward. So that's where I would always say is that if you're interested in creating a better work culture, home culture, friend culture, whatever it is, start with you and how you're showing up to the conversation, and it'll improve from there.
Well, that sounds like marvelous counsel to me. What's the best way for our listeners to reach out, tap into your work, start learning more, maybe have a more substantive conversation with you? Let's leave them with some coordinates.
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's enneagramreflections.com. And it has my email on there. It has my socials. So check it out. And you can always contact me for more information or if you have any questions.
Well, Kimberly, it has been an absolute delight having you on the
Yeah.
show. Thank you for your
Yeah. Thanks for
enthusiasm.
having me.
The work you're doing is so important, and you are a fresh breath of air. You are really doing good work, and we sure appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. What a great opportunity to be on this show with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Kimberly Collins, with Enneagram Reflections, and everyone here at the Business Radio X family saying we'll see you in the fast lane.